The dust from the first week of 2026 free agency has finally settled, but the trail it left in Green Bay is deep. We saw solid players, who were the foundation of our roster last year, say goodbye. The departure of names like Rashan Gary, traded to the Cowboys, and Kingsley Enagbare, who signed with the Jets, opened an unexpected hole in our pass rush. On the other hand, the front office didn't stand still. The arrival of veteran Javon Hargrave to the interior of the defensive line and Benjamin St-Juste to the secondary shows that the team is trying to plug the holes, but will it be enough? Regardless of these signings, the total focus now shifts to the end of April. The 2026 NFL Draft will be the turning point in ensuring this team is ready to compete at a high level. We're talking about a transitional moment where youth will need to take center stage. With the departure of key players on the offensive line, such as veteran Elgton Jenkins and tackle Rasheed Walker, Brian Gutekunst's puzzle has become much more complex. We need immediate talent and depth to avoid repeating past mistakes. Man, losing Rashan Gary hurts so much. He was the engine of that defense. But let's be realistic. Brian Gutekunst knows he can't pay everyone in 2026 with Jordan Love's contract weighing him down. Bringing in Hargrave was a masterstroke to prevent the center of the defense from becoming a Swiss cheese, pardon the pun. It's that old story, sacrifice a wing to save the middle. If you want to stay up to date on every detail of this Packers rebuilding process, you know what to do. Subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and comment below. Which position do you think is the #1 priority today? Your interaction is what keeps our community growing. Without a first-round pick in 2026, the pressure on pick number 52 is immense. Looking at the PFF simulator, the decision needs to be surgical. Although names like Keith Abney II were on the radar, the logical choice here is Keonte Scott, cornerback from Miami. Why him? Because we know the Packers have a very specific type. They love cornerbacks with long arms, and Scott fits that profile perfectly with his nearly 32-inch arms. The arrival of Benjamin St-Juste was important, but he's seen internally more as a depth piece. We can't put all our eggs in one basket with St-Juste or expect Carrington Valentine to become an elite team overnight. Scott brings the necessary physicality to Green Bay's defensive scheme. He plays with an aggression that's lacking in our backfield. With the evolution of the offense in our division, having a defender capable of deflecting passes and punishing receivers physically is a basic necessity for 2026. I like this pick. St-Juste is okay, but he's more of a stopgap. Scott has that aggressive Miami style, you know? And if there's one thing our secondary needs, it's someone with a long arm who isn't afraid of contact. At number 52, he's an incredible value. I think he'll be a starter before Week 8. Continuing our rebuilding journey, we've reached the 3rd round. The ideal scenario for the Packers presented itself. Darrell Jackson Jr., the giant from Florida, was still available. Even with the signing of Javon Hargrave, the defensive line remains a point of concern. Hargrave and Devontae Wyatt form an elite duo in the center, but we have to be realistic. Hargrave isn't getting any younger, and the depth of this group was tested in the worst possible way last year. Who doesn't remember the disaster against the Ravens in Week 17? When Wyatt left the field with an injury, our run defense simply evaporated. Without him, the team couldn't contain the opponent's running game, showing that after the starters, the level dropped drastically. The selection of Daryl Jackson Jr. aims to correct exactly that. He's an immediate rotation player, capable of maintaining physical intensity in the center of the line while the starters rest. In a long and physical championship, having quality bodies in the trenches is what separates the playoff teams from the extras. After seeing Derrick Henry crush us with 216 yards in Week 17, I'd pick 3 DTs if I could. Daryl Jackson Jr. is a monster. He won't show up much in the stats, but he'll clear the way for Edger and Cooper to shine. He's the kind of dirty player who wins playoff games in the cold. In round 4, with the number 120 pick, the focus shifted to the edge of the line. With the losses of Gary and Enagbare, the group of edge rushers became dangerously thin. We're betting on Durham from Michigan. While we have young players like Colin Oliver and Baron Sorrell entering their sophomore year, they still need to prove they can take the next step. Durham arrives to add competition and physical vigor to a group that has lost its most productive leader. In round 5, we look at protecting Jordan Love. The Packers' offensive line in 2026 is a big question mark. With Jenkins leaving, the center should feature Aaron Banks and Sean Rhyan, but the tackle positions are open. Jordan Morgan should take over the left side, and Anthony Belton, drafted last year, is an option, but the uncertainty is real. Therefore, selecting Bo Stevens, a guard from Iowa, makes perfect sense. He brings that characteristic fighting mentality of Iowa players, offering an extra layer of protection should the initial plans with the young tackles not work as expected. Betting on an edge rusher from Michigan usually pays off. Jan Durham isn't Gary, but with Micah Parsons returning from injury, we need any help in the pass rush. If he gets 5 or 6 sacks as a rookie, he's already paid for the 4th-round pick. It's a safe bet. Sometimes the draft gives us gifts based purely on raw talent and athleticism. That was the case with Zane Durant from Penn State. Durant had one of the best performances at this year's Combine, recording the fastest 40-yard dash among all defensive tackles and an impressive vertical jump, resulting in an RA score of 92. For the Packers, who historically prioritize elite athletes, letting such talent slip through their fingers late in the draft would be a mistake. Durant isn't just fast, he's explosive. In pass rush situations on obvious downs, he can be a game changer coming from the interior. He complements Daryl Jackson Jr.'s style well, bringing speed where Jackson brings weight. Ultimately, the 2026 draft for Green Bay seems to be a relentless pursuit of versatility and physical explosiveness. We need players who can impact the game in different ways, especially in a division where offenses are becoming increasingly dynamic and fast-paced. Iowa's offensive line is gold standard, flawless. Elgton Jenkins left an emotional and technical void, but Stevens has that necessary wickedness. I'd rather have him competing for the guard position than have Jordan Morgan improvise out of position. We need a level head. As we approach the final rounds, Green Bay has accumulated several 7th-round picks. A double-edged sword. As we saw last year with quarterback Michael Robinson, not everyone survives the final cut of 53 players. However, gambles like running back Rashan Fasten from South Carolina bring an Alvin Kamara style that can be useful in the passing game, something LaFleur loves to exploit. We also added depth to the secondary with Josh Bowden from Southern Miss, maintaining the philosophy that you can never have too many cornerbacks. Man, 4.75 on the 40-yard dash for a guy that size. That's video game material. Zane Durant is the lottery ticket I always want the Packers to buy. If he learns to use his hands like Hargrave, we're going to have an absurd inside pass rush. He's my darling in this mock tournament. The simulator gave us a B+ for this mock draft, which seems fair. We addressed the critical needs at cornerback and defensive tackle, brought youth to the pass rush, and added competition to the offensive line. It wasn't a draft of flashy first-round names, but a draft of hard workers and elite athletes. And you, the fan? How do you rate this rebuild? Is Keonte Scott the guy for our secondary? And what did you think of Zane Durant's speed? Leave your grade from A to F in the comments, and let's get ready for April. Until next time, and go Pack Go!